His tongue was in my mouth when he told me. We were pressed against the wall of his study, my back against the mahogany, his body hard against mine, his hands everywhere, my heart trying to beat out of my chest. "Emma," he breathed into my neck, and I felt it like fire. "Emma, stop. I need to tell you something before this goes any further." "Tell me later." I gasped because I'd never felt like this, never been touched like this, never wanted anything as badly as I wanted him to keep going. "No. Now." He pulled back, and the loss of his body against mine actually hurt. His eyes were wild, desperate. "I'm dying. Brain tumor. 3 to 6 months. And if you let me take you to my bed right now, if you let me inside you, if you give me your first time, you need to know I might not live long enough to give you a second." The world stopped spinning. "What?" "I'm dying." He said it like a confession, like a curse. "And I'm falling in love with you. And I know that makes me selfish, because you deserve someone with a future, but Emma," his voice cracked, "I want you so badly I can't think straight. I want to taste every inch of you. I want to make you scream my name. I want to show you what your body is capable of feeling. And then I want to fall asleep with you in my arms and wake up and do it all over again until I can't anymore." I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel his words, his need, the terrible truth hanging between us. "You're going to break my heart," I whispered. "I know." He pressed his forehead to mine. "But you're going to bring me back to life first, even if just for a little while. How long do we have? Tonight? Forever? I don't know." His hands framed my face. "But I know I'd rather have one night with you than 1,000 nights with anyone else." I made my choice in that moment. The worst, best, most devastating choice of my life. "Then take me to bed," I said. "And don't you dare hold back." What happened next was the most intense, passionate, life-altering night of my existence. He touched me like I was precious and took me like I was his. He made me feel things I didn't know a body could feel. He whispered things in my ear that made me blush and beg and completely fall apart. And when the sun came up, when reality came crashing back, when I had to face what we'd done and what was coming, I didn't regret a single second. This is about lust that became love. About impossible odds. About a goodbye that should have been forever and a reunion that defied medical science. This story is going to gut you. You're going to cry. You're going to rage. You're going to fall in love with a man fighting death and a woman brave enough to love him anyway. But stick with me, because the ending is everything. Welcome back to African Love Chronicles, your favorite place for stories soaked in passion and soul-deep romance. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment to tell us your favorite part of the story. Your support keeps these love tales flowing strong. Thanks for always supporting us. Now grab your popcorn and let's dive in. The Sterling estate sat on 5 acres of prime real estate in Lekki Phase 1, Lagos, a monument to wealth and success that made Emma feel impossibly small every time she walked through its gates. The main house was a sprawling modern masterpiece of glass and steel, with perfectly manicured gardens, a swimming pool that looked like it belonged in a resort, and more rooms than any single person could ever need. Emma had been working there for 6 months, one of 12 housekeeping staff members who maintained the property. She'd taken the job out of desperation after her father's small provision shop had gone bankrupt, drowning the family in debt that had swallowed her dreams of finishing university whole. At 23, Emma was practical to a fault. She wore her dark hair in a perpetual bun, kept her head down, worked harder than anyone else, and saved every naira she could. She was plain, she told herself. Average height, average looks, nothing that would make a man like Michael Sterling look at her twice. Michael Sterling. Even his name sounded like money. The billionaire owner of Sterling Industries, a conglomerate that had fingers in everything from real estate to technology to manufacturing. At 32, he was one of the youngest self-made billionaires in Nigeria, featured on magazine covers, linked to models and actresses, living a life that existed in a completely different universe from Emma's. She'd seen him exactly 3 times in 6 months. Once when she'd been hired, a brief glimpse as he strode through the main hall talking on his phone. Once at a distance as he swam laps in the pool while she cleaned the pool house windows. And once when she'd accidentally walked into his private gym and he'd been lifting weights, his body a study in controlled power that had made her cheeks burn and her feet carry her out of there as fast as humanly possible. Emma didn't believe in fairy tales. She believed in hard work, in duty, in the 50,000 naira she sent home to her mother and younger siblings every month. That belief lasted until the morning of March 15th. Mrs. Patricia, the head housekeeper, was sick with malaria. She'd assigned Emma to handle the morning duties in Michael Sterling's private wing, something Emma had never done before. "Don't touch anything you don't need to touch," Mrs. Patricia had said from her sickbed, her voice weak. "Fresh coffee at 6 a.m. sharp. He takes it black, 2 sugars. Clean the study while he's in the shower. He's particular about his space but fair. Just do your job and don't bother him with conversation." Emma had nodded, her stomach in knots as she prepared the coffee tray at 5:45 a.m. Her hands shook slightly as she carried it through the hallways she'd never been allowed to enter before. The private wing was quieter, more intimate than the rest of the vast house. The walls were decorated with original artwork, the floors a warm hardwood that her footsteps whispered across. She knocked softly on the study door at exactly 6 a.m. "Come in." The voice was deep, distracted. Emma balanced the tray carefully as she pushed open the door. The study was magnificent, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk positioned to face the windows overlooking the Lagos skyline, leather furniture that probably cost more than her family's house. And sitting at the desk, already dressed in a crisp white shirt and dark slacks despite the early hour, was Michael Sterling. He didn't look up as she entered. His attention was fixed on his laptop screen, his fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Emma moved quietly to the small table by the window where Mrs. Patricia had instructed her to place the coffee. "Just leave it on the desk." Emma jumped at the sound of his voice. "Aye," Mrs. Patricia said. "I know what Mrs. Patricia said." He still hadn't looked at her. "But I'm working and I need it within reach. Please." The please was almost an afterthought, but it was there. Emma adjusted her path, moving toward the enormous desk. She was so focused on not spilling anything that she didn't notice the book on the floor until her foot caught it. She went down hard, the tray flying from her hands. Hot coffee erupted across Michael Sterling's desk, his laptop, his papers, his white shirt. Time stopped. Emma lay on the floor, her knee throbbing, her heart in her throat, watching in horror as coffee dripped from the edge of the desk. She'd just destroyed a laptop that probably cost more than she'd make in a year. She'd just ruined papers that were probably worth millions. She was fired. She was more than fired. She was ruined. I'm so sorry, oh God, I'm so sorry." The words tumbled out as she scrambled to her feet, reaching for something, anything to clean up the mess. "Stop." His voice was calm. Too calm. Emma froze, coffee dripping from her fingers, tears burning in her eyes. Michael Sterling stood up from his chair, coffee staining the front of his shirt, and for the first time, he really looked at her. Emma felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. His eyes were gray, not cold gray, but storm gray, intense and searching. He was taller than she'd realized, his presence commanding even soaked in coffee. "Are you hurt?" Of all the things Emma expected him to say, that wasn't it. "I what? You fell hard. Are you hurt?" He moved around the desk toward her, and Emma instinctively backed up. "No, I'm fine. I'm so sorry, Mr. Sterling. I'll pay for everything, the laptop, the papers, I'll work for free, It's just coffee." He interrupted her spiral, and there was something almost amused in his tone. "And things. None of it matters." Emma stared at him like he'd started speaking a different language. "But you're Emma, right? Emma James?" He tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Mrs. Patricia mentions you sometimes. Says you're the hardest worker on her team." Yes, sir." Emma's brain was short-circuiting. He knew her name. He'd noticed her work. "Well, Emma James." Michael pulled his soaked shirt away from his chest with a grimace. "I'm going to need to change. Could you bring me a fresh shirt from my closet? Then we'll clean this up together." "Together?" Emma's voice cracked. "Sir, you don't need to. I tripped you." He said it matter-of-factly. "That book on the floor. I was reading it last night and left it there. My fault, not yours." Before Emma could process this, before she could argue that she should have been watching where she was walking, Michael Sterling did something that changed everything. He smiled. It wasn't the polite, professional smile she'd seen in magazine photos. It was real, slightly crooked, reaching his eyes, transforming his face from intimidatingly handsome to devastatingly human. "Go on," he said gently. "Closet's through that door. Any shirt is fine." Emma moved on autopilot through the indicated door, finding herself in a walk-in closet that was bigger than her family's entire living room. Rows of shirts, suits, shoes organized with military precision. She grabbed the first white shirt she saw, her hands still shaking. When she returned, Michael had already moved his laptop to a dry surface and was using tissues to blot the worst of the coffee from his papers. "I really can do that, sir," Emma said, setting the shirt down on a chair. "I know you can." He glanced at her, and there was something in his expression she couldn't read. "But I want to help. Is that okay?" No one had ever asked Emma if it was okay to help her with anything. She nodded mutely. They worked in silence for a few minutes, cleaning up the mess. Emma was hyper-aware of his presence beside her, of the way his cologne smelled like cedar and rain, of how his hands moved with surprising gentleness as he salvaged what he could. "You know what's funny?" Michael said suddenly, breaking the silence. "I've had people spill things on me, around me, at meetings and events. High-powered executives, important clients. And every single time, they make excuses. Blame the waiter, the setup, the lighting. You're the first person who's just apologized. Sincerely. Without trying to shift responsibility." Emma didn't know what to say to that. "It was my fault. It was an accident." He corrected her gently. "There's a difference." When the worst of the mess was cleaned up, Michael straightened, his stained shirt clinging to his chest in a way that made Emma's cheeks heat. She quickly looked away. "Thank you for your help, Emma." His voice was formal again, professional. "You can finish the rest of the cleaning. I'll be in the shower." He grabbed the fresh shirt and headed toward another door, presumably his bedroom. But he paused at the threshold, looking back at her. "Emma." "Yes, sir?" "You smiled at me when you walked in. Before the coffee incident." His expression was unreadable. "Most people don't. They're too busy being professional, or nervous, or trying to impress me. But you smiled like you were just happy to be doing your job." Emma's heart did something strange in her chest. "I like my job, sir. I'm grateful for it." Something shifted in Michael's eyes. Something she definitely couldn't read. "That's refreshing." Then he was gone, the door closing behind him, and Emma was left alone in the study with a racing heart and the strange feeling that something important had just happened, even though she had no idea what. She finished cleaning in a daze, replacing the coffee she'd spilled with a fresh cup, making sure everything was perfect. By the time Michael emerged from his bedroom, showered, changed, looking every inch the billionaire again, Emma was ready to slip out quietly. "Emma." She stopped at the door, turning back. "Yes, sir? Same time tomorrow?" He was sitting at his desk again, his attention already on his computer, but there was something in his voice that made it sound less like an order and more like a question. "Mrs. Patricia will be back tomorrow, sir. I'd prefer you." He said it simply, still not looking at her. "If that's all right with you." Emma should have said no. Should have recognized the danger in the way her heart was beating. Should have known that nothing good could come from a maid and a billionaire sharing morning coffee. Instead, she heard herself say, "Same time tomorrow, sir." She thought she saw him smile as she left, but when she glanced back, his face was perfectly professional again. Maybe she'd imagined it. Emma didn't imagine the smile. Over the next 2 weeks, she learned that Michael Sterling smiled more than anyone would have guessed. Small smiles, like private jokes with himself. Wider smiles when something actually amused him. And once a laugh, real and surprised, when Emma had accidentally used a British accent while reading aloud a particularly pompous email he'd received. The morning routine had evolved naturally. Emma would arrive at 6 a.m. with coffee. Michael would be working already, as if sleep was optional for billionaires. She'd set the coffee on his desk, carefully, always carefully, and begin cleaning the study. But somewhere around the third morning, Michael had started talking to her. "What do you think of this?" He'd asked, turning his laptop screen toward her. It showed designs for a new affordable housing project Sterling Industries was considering. Emma had been so surprised she'd nearly dropped her dusting cloth. "Sir? Your opinion. What do you think?" He'd leaned back in his chair, watching her with those intense gray eyes. "You're from Lagos. You understand housing challenges better than most people in boardrooms. Would this work?" Emma had looked at the designs, really looked, and then carefully shared her thoughts. The units were too small for families. The lack of community spaces would make it feel like a warehouse rather than a home. The location was too far from public transport. Michael had listened to every word. Then he'd picked up his phone and called someone. "James? Sterling. I need you to revise the Ikoyi housing project. The designs need significant changes." He'd used Emma's suggestions. All of them. After that, the conversations became a regular part of their mornings. Michael would ask her opinion on everything from business decisions to the books on his shelves. Emma slowly relaxed around him, began to see past the billionaire exterior to the man underneath. Michael Sterling was brilliant, that was obvious. But he was also lonely in a way Emma recognized because she'd felt it herself. Surrounded by people but truly connected to none of them. "Why don't you have family photos in here?" Emma asked one morning, 2 weeks into their routine. She immediately regretted the personal question. "I'm sorry, that's not. No family to photograph." Michael interrupted, his voice neutral. "My parents died when I was 19. Car accident. I was an only child. Built Sterling Industries from the life insurance payout and a lot of loans." Emma's heart clenched. "I'm sorry. Don't be." He looked at her, and there was something raw in his expression. "It taught me to be self-reliant. To not need anyone. Everyone needs someone," Emma said softly. Michael's gaze held hers for a long moment. "Do they?" Emma wanted to say yes. Wanted to tell him that the loneliness she saw in him was the same loneliness she felt at night in her small room in the servants' quarters. That no amount of success or money or power could fill the void of human connection. But before she could find the words, Michael's phone rang. The moment shattered. He answered it, his voice going cold and professional, and Emma quietly left the study. That night, lying in her bed, Emma admitted something to herself that she'd been avoiding for 2 weeks. She was developing feelings for Michael Sterling. It was stupid. Dangerous. Impossible. He was a billionaire. She was a maid. This wasn't a fairy tale. Emma decided to request a transfer back to her regular duties. It was the smart thing to do. The safe thing. But the next morning, when she walked into Michael's study and saw him looking out the window with such profound sadness in his eyes that it physically hurt her to witness, she knew she wasn't going anywhere. "Coffee," she said softly, setting it on his desk. Michael turned to her, and the sadness was gone, replaced by that small smile that she'd come to treasure. "Thank you, Emma." "Bad night?" she asked, overstepping boundaries she usually respected. Michael was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I got some medical results back yesterday." Emma's blood went cold. "Medical results?" He moved to his desk, sank into his chair, and for the first time since she'd known him, Michael Sterling looked defeated. "I've been feeling off for months. Tired, dizzy headaches. I thought it was just stress. Turns out it's a bit more serious than that." "How serious?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Michael looked at her, and in his eyes she saw fear. Real human fear. "There's a mass in my brain. Inoperable. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. A year if I'm lucky." The world tilted. Emma gripped the edge of his desk, her knees suddenly weak. "That's not. There has to be something. They want to try some experimental treatments." Michael's voice was hollow. "Might extend my life a few months. Might do nothing. Might make the time I have left even worse." "You have to try," Emma said fiercely, moving around the desk without thinking, driven by pure emotion. "You can't just give up." "Give up?" Michael looked at her, and something blazed in his eyes. "Emma, I've spent the last 13 years building an empire. I've made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I've slept with beautiful women, traveled to every continent, owned everything I ever wanted. And now I'm being told I have months to live, and I can't think of a single thing I've done that actually mattered." "That's not true," Emma protested. "Isn't it?" He stood abruptly, his hands gripping the desk. "Tell me, Emma, what have I done with my life that would make anyone remember me? What have I built that isn't just about money and power?" Emma thought about the housing project he'd revised based on her suggestions. About the scholarship program for underprivileged students she'd heard the staff talking about. About the way he treated his employees with respect, paid them well, listened to them. "You matter," she said simply. "To a lot of people. You matter to me." The words hung in the air between them. Emma realized how close she was standing to him, how she could see flecks of darker gray in his eyes, how his hands were trembling slightly against the desk. "I'm going to die, Emma," he said quietly. "And I've never been in love. I've never felt truly connected to another person. I've never experienced anything real that wasn't about business or money or power. And now I'm out of time." Before Emma could think, before she could stop herself, she reached out and took his hand. His skin was warm. His fingers closed around hers reflexively, holding on like she was an anchor in a storm. "Then don't waste the time you have left," Emma said, her voice steady even though her heart was breaking. "Live, Michael. Really live." He looked at their joined hands, then at her face, and Emma saw the exact moment something changed in his expression. Something shifted. Something clicked into place. Teach me, he whispered. Teach you what? How to live. How to feel. His grip tightened on her hand. You smile every morning like you're grateful just to be alive. You find joy in cleaning a room, in a conversation, in a moment. Teach me how to do that. In whatever time I have left. Emma should have said no. Should have pulled her hand away and run from the room and never come back. Instead, she squeezed his hand and said, Okay. The next morning, Emma didn't bring coffee to the study. She brought 2 helmets and a smile. Michael stared at her in confusion. What's this? Lesson 1, Emma announced. When was the last time you did something completely ordinary? I don't understand. Exactly. Emma set the helmets on his desk with a gentle thud. Come on. We're going on an adventure. Emma, I have meetings. Cancel them. She crossed her arms, channeling a confidence she didn't quite feel. You asked me to teach you how to live. This is how you live. Not in boardrooms and fancy offices. Out there. In the real world. Michael looked at her for a long moment, and Emma was certain he'd refuse. Then he picked up his phone, made 3 quick calls, and stood up. Lead the way. Emma had borrowed a motorcycle from Chitty, one of the security guards who owed her a favor. Michael looked at the bike with something between amusement and concern as they walked to the garage. When was the last time you rode a motorcycle? Emma asked, holding out his helmet. Never. Never. Emma couldn't hide her surprise. Michael shrugged, a slight smile playing at his lips. I went from student loans to luxury cars. Missed the motorcycle phase entirely. Then you've been missing out. Emma swung onto the bike with practiced ease. Come on. Trust me. For a moment, Michael just looked at her. Then he put on the helmet and climbed on behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist tentatively. Hold on tighter, Emma instructed, trying to ignore how her entire body had come alive at his touch. I promise I won't crash. His arms tightened around her, his chest pressing against her back, and Emma sent up a silent prayer for strength before she kicked the bike to life. Lagos in the early morning was a different world. The streets were busy but not yet chaotic, the air still relatively fresh, the heat not yet oppressive. Emma navigated through traffic with ease, feeling Michael gradually relax behind her, his grip becoming less tentative and more confident. She took him to places she loved. The beach at dawn, where they watched fishermen pull in their nets, and Michael bought fresh fish with cash he'd probably never carried before. A local buka where they ate jollof rice and plantain on plastic chairs, and Michael admitted it was the best meal he'd had in years. The market in Balagan, where Emma haggled for fruits and Michael watched her in fascination. You're good at that, he said as they walked through the crowded stalls, his hand hovering near her back protectively. At haggling? Emma grinned. I've been doing it since I was 6. My mother used to send me to buy things because I always got the best prices. No, at. Michael paused, searching for words. At being present. You're not worried about the future or dwelling on the past. You're just here, in this moment, fully engaged. Emma looked at him, this billionaire in designer jeans and a simple shirt that still probably cost more than everything she owned, standing in a Lagos market like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's because this moment is all we really have, she said softly. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow might not come. All we have is right now. Something flickered across Michael's face. Pain, recognition, understanding. For me, tomorrow definitely might not come. Emma reached out and took his hand without thinking. Then let's make today count. They spent the entire day together. Emma showed Michael her Lagos. Not the Lekki penthouses and Victoria Island restaurants, but the real Lagos. They took a Danfo bus, squeezing in with other passengers, and Michael laughed when the conductor called him Oga and tried to overcharge him. They visited a small bookstore Emma loved, where used books were sold for almost nothing, and Michael bought 20 books with the enthusiasm of a child in a candy store. I haven't been in a bookstore in years, he admitted, clutching his bag of purchases. I just download everything. But you miss the smell, Emma said, opening one of his books and holding it up to his nose. That paper and ink smell. The feel of turning pages. The anticipation of starting a new story. Michael inhaled deeply, and when he opened his eyes, he was looking at her instead of the book. I'm starting to understand why you smile so much. Emma's heart skipped. Why? Because you find magic in ordinary things. You find joy in moments most people overlook. He shifted closer, and Emma was suddenly very aware that they were standing in a narrow bookstore aisle, very close together. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. Emma's breath caught. No one had ever called her beautiful. especially not a man who could have any woman in the world. Michael, I know this is complicated, he interrupted gently. I know I'm your employer. I know there's a power imbalance. I know I'm sick. But Emma, I need you to know that these last few weeks, getting to know you, have been the best part of my life. You make me feel alive in a way I never have before. Emma knew she should step back, should maintain professional distance, should protect herself from the heartbreak that was inevitably coming. Instead, she said, you make me feel seen. Like I matter. Like I'm more than just ordinary. You're extraordinary, Michael said fiercely. And I want to spend whatever time I have left getting to know everything about you. If you'll let me. Emma thought about her practical nature, her careful plans, her belief that fairy tales weren't real. Then she thought about Michael's prognosis. 6 months to a year. Such a short time. Such precious time. Okay, she whispered. Michael's smile was like the sun coming out. Okay. Emma found herself smiling back. But on one condition. Anything. No employer-employee boundaries. No Mr. Sterling and Emma the maid. If we're doing this, we're doing it as equals. Just Michael and Emma. 2 people getting to know each other. Michael's eyes softened. Just Michael and Emma. He held out his hand and Emma took it. Not as a maid to her employer, but as a woman to a man. As 2 people standing in a bookstore, surrounded by thousands of stories, beginning to write their own. They sealed it with a handshake that lingered too long, their fingers intertwining, their eyes locked, the world around them fading away. It was the beginning of everything. The next 3 weeks were a blur of stolen moments and growing intimacy. Michael cleared his schedule dramatically, delegating work to his executives and spending his days with Emma. To the staff's confusion, the billionaire and the maid became inseparable. They ate meals together, walked the grounds together, spent hours in his study talking about everything and nothing. Emma learned that Michael was addicted to terrible action movies, that he could quote Shakespeare from memory, that he played piano beautifully but hadn't touched the instrument in years. She learned that his favorite color was the blue of the ocean at sunrise, that he had a scar on his left shoulder from a childhood accident, that he slept poorly because his mind never stopped working. Michael learned that Emma dreamed of becoming a teacher one day, that she sent most of her salary home to support her family, that she'd never been outside Lagos. He learned that she loved old romantic comedies, that she hummed while she worked, that she could cook better than his personal chef, but had never told anyone because she didn't want to seem presumptuous. They didn't talk about the illness. By unspoken agreement, Michael's diagnosis existed in a box they refused to open during their time together. When he had headaches, Emma would gently massage his temples. When he grew suddenly tired, she'd suggest they rest, and they'd lie on the couch in his study, her reading aloud while he listened with his eyes closed. The attraction between them grew like a living thing. It was in the way Michael's hand would linger on Emma's back when he guided her through a door. In the way Emma's breath would catch when Michael looked at her. In the accidental touches that became less accidental as time went on. But they hadn't kissed. Hadn't crossed that final line. Until one night, 3 weeks after their bookstore conversation, when everything changed. It was late past midnight. Emma should have been in her quarters, but Michael had asked her to stay, to watch the stars from his private terrace. They lay on loungers, side by side, the Lagos night spread above them. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Michael said suddenly, his voice cutting through the comfortable silence. Emma considered the question. "Sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up, and this will all have been a dream. That I'll be back to being invisible. That you'll realize I'm not special at all." Michael turned his head to look at her. "You think you're not special? I'm realistic." Emma kept her eyes on the stars. "I'm a maid, Michael. I have a high school education and a family drowning in debt. I wear borrowed clothes and save every naira. On paper, I'm completely ordinary. Emma, look at me." She turned her head reluctantly, meeting his gaze. "You are the most extraordinary person I've ever met," Michael said with absolute conviction. "You have a heart that finds joy in everything. You have wisdom that most people twice your age don't possess. You have a kindness that makes everyone around you better. You make me want to be better." He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. "You're not ordinary. You're magic." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Michael, I'm falling in love with you," he said quietly. "I know I shouldn't. I know it's not fair to you. I know my time is limited, and starting something with me is probably the worst decision you could make. But I can't help it. Every moment with you makes me feel like I'm finally living. And I'm terrified that I'm going to die without ever knowing what it's like to really love someone. The tears spilled over. Emma sat up, Michael following her, and they faced each other in the starlight. I'm falling in love with you too, Emma whispered. And it terrifies me because I know how this ends. I know that loving you means losing you. But I can't help it either. Then don't fight it. Michael cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. Let's just be. For however long we have. Let's love each other without holding back. Let's make every moment count. I don't want you to die, Emma said brokenly. I don't want to lose you. I know, sweetheart. I know. Michael pressed his forehead to hers, their breath mingling. But we can't stop it. We can only choose how we spend the time we have. Then I choose you, Emma said fiercely. I choose every moment with you. I choose falling in love with you, even though it's going to break my heart. I choose this. Emma. Michael breathed her name like a prayer. Can I kiss you? In answer, Emma closed the distance between them. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, both of them afraid of breaking the fragile beauty of the moment. Michael's lips were soft against hers, his hands careful on her face, and Emma felt like every romance novel she'd ever read had lied because nothing could have prepared her for this. Then the kiss deepened. Michael's hands slid into her hair, and Emma's fingers clutched his shirt, pulling him closer. The gentleness gave way to need, to weeks of suppressed desire, to the knowledge that their time was limited and precious. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Michael rested his forehead against Emma's. I want you, he said hoarsely. But Emma, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about physical desire. I want all of you, your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, your heart. I want to know every part of you. And I want to give you every part of me in return. I've never, Emma's voice trembled. I've never been with anyone. Not like that. Michael pulled back to look at her, surprise and something tender in his eyes. Never. Never. Emma felt heat flood her cheeks. I always thought I'd wait for someone special. Someone I really loved. And then life got in the way, and there was never time, and... She stopped, looking at him. But I want to. With you. I want you to be my first. My only, even if, her voice broke. Even if you're also my last. Emma. Michael's voice was rough with emotion. Are you sure? Because once we do this, once we cross this line, I won't be able to let you go. Whatever time I have left, I'll spend it loving you. And when I'm gone, he stopped, his jaw clenching. You'll have to carry that. You'll have to grieve. I don't want to hurt you more than I already will. Emma took his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Michael Sterling, you listen to me. Loving you is not going to hurt me. Losing you is going to hurt. But having loved you? That's going to be the greatest gift of my life. So yes, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. Michael closed his eyes, and Emma saw a tear slip down his cheek. She kissed it away, then kissed his closed eyelids, his cheekbones, the corner of his mouth. Take me to bed, she whispered against his lips. Love me. Show me what it means to really live. Michael's eyes opened, and they were blazing with emotion, love, desire, tenderness, and something wild that made Emma's heart race. Are you absolutely certain? I've never been more certain of anything. He stood, pulling her up with him, and for a moment they just stood there, hands clasped, the night air warm around them. Then Michael swept her into his arms, carrying her as if she weighed nothing, and Emma laughed, the sound bright and joyful and free. Very dramatic, Mr. Sterling, she teased. Just Michael, he reminded her, pushing open the door to his bedroom. And you bring out my romantic side. The bedroom was huge, dominated by a massive bed, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Lagos skyline. But Emma only had eyes for Michael as he set her down gently, his hands sliding to her waist, his eyes never leaving hers. If at any point you want to stop, he began. I won't, Emma interrupted. But I appreciate you saying it. Michael smiled, that crooked smile that made her heart flip. You're amazing. Kiss me again, Emma whispered. He did. This kiss was different from the one on the terrace, deeper, more assured, filled with promise. Michael's hands moved slowly, respectfully, tracing the curve of her waist, the line of her spine. Emma's fingers worked at the buttons of his shirt, fumbling slightly in her nervousness and desire. Let me, Michael murmured, stepping back slightly and shrugging off his shirt. Emma's breath caught. She'd seen him shirtless before. That first day with the coffee, glimpses at the pool. But this was different. This was intimate. This was her right to look, to touch, to explore. You're beautiful, she whispered, reaching out tentatively to trace the defined muscles of his chest. Michael's breath hitched at her touch. I should be saying that to you. His hands found the hem of her simple t-shirt. She'd changed out of her uniform hours ago, and paused, asking silent permission. Emma nodded, and he lifted it slowly, reverently, as if unwrapping something precious. She stood before him in her simple cotton bra, nothing fancy, nothing expensive, and felt suddenly self-conscious. But when she met Michael's eyes, all she saw was wonder. Perfect, he breathed. You're absolutely perfect. He kissed her again, walking her slowly backward toward the bed. When the back of her knees hit the mattress, Emma sat, and Michael knelt before her, his hands on her knees. We go at your pace, he said softly. Tell me what you want. Tell me what feels good. Tell me if something doesn't. This is about us, about connecting. There's no rush. Emma's heart swelled. This man, this beautiful, complicated man who had everything, was on his knees before her, treating her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I want to feel everything, she whispered. I want to remember every moment of this. Every touch. Every kiss. Michael's smile was tender and heated all at once. Then let me worship you the way you deserve. What followed was slow and sweet and achingly beautiful. Michael took his time, learning every inch of her with his hands and mouth, building heat between them gradually. He whispered to her, telling her she was beautiful, that she was perfect, asking what she liked, praising every response she gave him. Emma had read books, had imagined this moment, but nothing prepared her for the reality of being loved by Michael Sterling. Not the billionaire, but the man, tender and passionate, patient and hungry, focused entirely on her pleasure and comfort. When he finally joined them together, his eyes locked on hers, his hands holding hers, Emma felt a completeness she'd never known. The initial discomfort faded quickly, replaced by sensation and emotion so intense it brought tears to her eyes. Okay, Michael whispered, holding perfectly still, his jaw clenched with restraint. More than okay, Emma managed. Perfect. You're perfect. They moved together, finding a rhythm that felt natural and right. Michael was gentle but not tentative, passionate but not rough. He made love to her like she was both fragile and strong, like she was the most important thing in his world. When Emma shattered, Michael's name a cry on her lips, he held her through it, his own release following shortly after. They collapsed together, breathing hard, hearts racing in tandem. In the aftermath, Michael gathered her close, pulling the sheets around them, his lips pressing soft kisses to her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Thank you, he whispered. Emma pulled back slightly to look at him. For what? For trusting me. For letting me be your first. For giving me something real and precious and beautiful. His eyes glistened. For making me feel alive. Emma touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. Michael, I need to tell you something. Anything. I love you. The words came easily, naturally, because they were true. I'm completely, terrifyingly, wonderfully in love with you. Michael's smile was radiant. I love you too. God, Emma, I love you so much it actually hurts. Like my chest can't contain it all. They kissed again, soft and sweet, and then they just held each other, wrapped in expensive sheets in a room that cost more than Emma would make in a lifetime, feeling like the richest people in the world. Stay with me tonight, Michael murmured against her hair. And tomorrow night. And every night we have. Yes, Emma whispered. Yes to everything. They fell asleep tangled together. Two people who had found each other against all odds, choosing love in the face of inevitable loss. For 3 weeks, Emma and Michael existed in a bubble of their own making. Emma moved into his private wing. Scandalous, the staff whispered, but Michael didn't care, and Emma found she didn't either. They spent their days exploring Lagos together, finding joy in simple things, making memories. Their nights were spent tangled together, learning each other's bodies, whispering secrets and dreams in the dark. Michael seemed healthier, more vibrant. The headaches came less frequently. He laughed more. The fear in his eyes when he'd first told Emma about his diagnosis had been replaced by something that looked like hope. Maybe love is the cure, Emma joked one morning, tracing patterns on his bare chest as they lay in bed, the Lagos sun streaming through the windows. Maybe you are, Michael replied seriously, capturing her hand and kissing her fingers. I feel better than I have in months, Emma. Really. But reality has a way of intruding on even the most perfect moments. Emma was in Michael's study, organizing some papers while he was on a business call in his bedroom, when Mrs. Patricia appeared at the door. The head housekeeper looked uncomfortable, her expression a mix of concern and disapproval. Emma, we need to talk. Emma's stomach dropped. She'd been avoiding the staff, avoiding the whispered conversations and judgmental looks. Mrs. Patricia. The other staff are talking. Mrs. Patricia stepped into the study, closing the door behind her. About you and Mr. Sterling. About the relationship. It's not what you think, Emma began, though she wasn't sure what she meant by that. It was exactly what they thought. Isn't it? Mrs. Patricia's voice wasn't unkind, just worried. Emma, you're a smart girl. Surely you know this can't end well. He's a billionaire. Your staff. These things never work out for girls like us. He loves me, Emma said quietly. And I love him. I'm sure you think you do. Mrs. Patricia sighed, sitting down in one of the leather chairs. But Emma, men like Michael Sterling don't marry maids. They have flings, they have fun, and then they move on to someone of their own class. You're going to get your heart broken. You don't understand, Emma started, but Mrs. Patricia held up her hand. I understand more than you think. 30 years ago, I was you. Young, naive, in love with a man I couldn't have. He promised me everything. And when he got bored, he moved on, and I was left broken. Her eyes were sad. I don't want that for you. Michael is dying, Emma said bluntly, and Mrs. Patricia's face went pale. He is maybe 6 months. This isn't about class or marriage or the future. This is about two people choosing to love each other in whatever time they have. Mrs. Patricia was silent for a long moment. He's really dying? Brain tumor. Inoperable. Emma's voice cracked. So you see, I'm going to get my heart broken either way. At least this way, I get to love him first. The older woman's expression softened. Oh, Emma. I'm sorry. I didn't know. No one does. We haven't told anyone. Emma wiped at her eyes impatiently. Please don't say anything. He doesn't want people treating him differently. I won't say a word. Mrs. Patricia stood, moving to Emma and pulling her into a gentle hug. But sweetheart, you need to prepare yourself. Loving someone you're going to lose. It's going to destroy you. I know, Emma whispered. But he's worth it. After Mrs. Patricia left, Emma stood in the study, her arms wrapped around herself, the weight of reality pressing down on her. She'd been so caught up in the bubble of their love that she'd almost forgotten Michael was dying. This wasn't a fairy tale where love conquered all. This was real life, where brain tumors didn't care how much two people loved each other. Emma. She turned to find Michael in the doorway, his phone in his hand, his expression strange. What's wrong? Emma asked immediately, moving toward him. That was my doctor. Michael's voice was oddly flat. He wants to see me. Tomorrow. Says there's something we need to discuss about the latest scans. Fear clutched Emma's heart. What kind of something? He wouldn't say over the phone. Michael looked at her, and Emma saw the fear back in his eyes. The fear that had been absent for weeks. Emma, I'm scared. She closed the distance between them, wrapping her arms around him, holding him tight. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. I promise. Michael held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. I don't want to die, he whispered into her hair. Not now. Not when I've finally found something worth living for. You're not going to die, Emma said fiercely, even though she had no right to make that promise. You're going to fight. We're going to fight. Together. They stood there for a long time, holding each other, the bubble of their perfect world already cracking at the edges. The next day, they sat in Dr. Adebayo's office at the private hospital in Victoria Island. The doctor was a small man with kind eyes and a grave expression. Michael held Emma's hand tightly as they waited for him to speak. The scans show something unexpected, Dr. Adebayo began, pulling up images on his computer screen. The tumor hasn't grown. In fact, it's actually shrunk slightly. Emma's heart leaped. Michael's grip on her hand tightened. Shrunk? How is that possible? We're not entirely sure, the doctor admitted. Sometimes tumors can be affected by changes in stress levels, hormone levels, general health improvements. But Michael, you need to understand, this doesn't mean you're cured. The tumor is still there. It's still inoperable, and it could start growing again at any time. But it shrunk, Michael said, and Emma heard the hope in his voice. That means something, doesn't it? It means we might have more time than we initially thought. Dr. Adebayo leaned back in his chair. Instead of 6 months, we might be looking at a year. Possibly more if this trend continues. But what? Emma asked. But there's a new experimental treatment being offered in Germany. It's risky and there are no guarantees. The procedure could kill you, Michael. But if it works, it could remove the tumor entirely. The doctor paused. You'd have to go to Germany immediately. Stay there for at least 6 months, possibly a year. The recovery process is intensive. Michael was silent, processing this information. Emma felt torn between hope and fear. What are the success rates? Michael asked. About 30%. But the patients who do survive typically go on to live normal, healthy lives. And if I don't do it? If I just continue as I am? The tumor could start growing again at any time. You'd have a year at most, and the decline would be gradual and difficult. Dr. Adebayo looked at them both. This is a decision only you can make, Michael. But you need to make it soon. The program has limited spots, and one just opened up. Michael was quiet on the drive home. Emma didn't push him, just held his hand and waited for him to process. When they got back to the estate, Michael led Emma out to the gardens, to a quiet spot by the pool where they'd spent many evenings talking. I want to try the treatment, he said finally. I want to fight for my life. For us. For a future. Then you should, Emma said, even though her heart was breaking at the thought of him being gone for so long. But there's a problem. Michael turned to face her, taking both her hands. I'd have to leave in 3 days. And I couldn't take you with me. The program is intensive, isolated. No visitors for the first 3 months while I go through the initial treatments. Emma felt like she'd been punched. 3 months without seeing you? Minimum. And Emma, his voice cracked. There's a 70% chance I won't survive the treatment. Which means there's a 70% chance that if I go, I'll die in Germany, alone, and you won't even get to say goodbye. The implications hung heavy between them. If Michael stayed, they'd have a year together. A year to love each other, to make memories, to be together before the inevitable end. If he went, he might live a full life, but he might also die on an operating table thousands of miles away, and Emma would never see him again. What do you want to do? Emma asked quietly. I don't know. Michael pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. Part of me wants to try, wants to fight for the chance at a real future with you. But part of me wants to stay, to spend every moment I have left with you, to not waste a single day. Emma thought about it, her heart warring with her head. Selfishly, she wanted him to stay. Wanted their year together, wanted the guarantee of his presence, even if it ended in loss. But she also loved him, truly loved him. And didn't that mean wanting what was best for him? If you stay, you're giving up a chance at life, Emma said slowly. If you go, you might die, but you also might live. Really live. A full life, Michael. Not just a year, but decades. A life without you for those first months, Michael pointed out. And if I die during the treatment, then at least you tried. Emma pulled back to look at him, tears streaming down her face. Michael, I love you. I love you so much that it terrifies me. But I love you enough to want you to live, even if it means risking everything. Emma, go to Germany, she said firmly. Take the treatment. Fight for your life. And when you come back, if you come back, I'll be here waiting. And if I don't come back? Emma's heart shattered, but she kept her voice steady. Then I'll have loved you. Truly, deeply, completely. And that will have to be enough. Michael cupped her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. How did I get so lucky to find you? We found each other, Emma corrected softly. And that's not luck. That's fate. They made love that night with a desperate intensity, both aware that it might be the last time. Every touch was precious, every kiss a promise and a goodbye, every whispered, I love you, waited with the knowledge that time was not on their side. Afterward, lying tangled together in the dark, Michael said, I'm going to come back to you. I promise. Don't promise things you can't control, Emma whispered. I can control how hard I fight. Michael tightened his arms around her. And I'm going to fight like hell to get back to you. Emma wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love could conquer medical odds and geographical distance, and the 70% chance of failure. But she was practical Emma, who knew better than to believe in fairy tales. So instead of saying she believed him, she just held him tighter and tried to memorize the feeling of being in his arms. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparations and stolen moments. Michael arranged his business affairs, delegated responsibilities, prepared for his absence. Emma tried to be strong, tried to support him, tried not to think about the very real possibility that she'd never see him again. On the night before his flight, Michael asked Emma to dress nicely and meet him on the terrace at 8. Emma wore a simple dress, the nicest thing she owned, bought with her first paycheck from the Sterling estate. It was dark blue, modest but flattering, and when she stepped onto the terrace, she found it transformed. Candles everywhere. Soft music playing from hidden speakers. A table set for two with dishes that smelled amazing. And Michael, wearing a suit that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine, standing by the railing with the Lagos skyline glittering behind him. "Michael," Emma breathed. "What is all this?" "Our last night together for a while." He moved toward her, taking her hands. "I wanted it to be special." They ate dinner, multiple courses that Michael had somehow arranged, each more delicious than the last. They talked and laughed, deliberately avoiding the topic of tomorrow's departure. For a few hours, they pretended they were just a couple in love, with all the time in the world. But when dinner was finished and the candles had burned low, Michael stood and pulled Emma to her feet. "Dance with me," he said softly. They swayed together to the music, Emma's head on Michael's chest, his arms wrapped around her. This was peace, Emma thought. This was home. Not the estate, not the luxury, just being held by this man who had somehow become her entire world. "Emma," Michael said eventually, his voice serious. "There's something I need to ask you." Emma pulled back to look at him, finding his expression nervous and tender all at once. "These past weeks with you have been the happiest of my life," Michael began. "You've taught me how to live, how to feel, how to love. You've given me something precious and real and beautiful. And I know we haven't known each other long. I know the circumstances are complicated. I know I'm about to leave for a treatment that might kill me." He paused, and Emma's heart was beating so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "But I also know that I love you. I love you more than I knew it was possible to love another person. And before I go, before I face whatever is coming, I need to ask you something." Michael reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's hands flew to her mouth, tears already spilling over. "Emma James," Michael opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the candlelight and sparkled like captured stars. "Will you marry me?" "Michael." Emma couldn't get words past the lump in her throat. "I know it seems crazy," Michael continued, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. "I know people will say it's too fast, too impractical, that a billionaire shouldn't marry his maid. But I don't care about any of that. I care about you. About us. About making sure that whatever happens in Germany, you know how much you mean to me. But if you don't," Emma couldn't finish the sentence. "If you don't survive, then you'll be my widow," Michael said softly. "You'll inherit everything. You'll be taken care of. Your family will be taken care of. You'll never have to worry about money or security again." "I don't want your money," Emma said fiercely. "I want you. I know. But I want you to have it anyway. I want to know that even if I don't make it, you'll be okay. That I took care of you the way you've taken care of me." Michael took her hand, and Emma felt him trembling. "But more than that, I want you to be my wife. I want to go to Germany with your ring on my finger, fighting for the chance to come back to you, to build a life with you, to love you for 50 years instead of just these few months." Emma looked at the ring, beautiful and simple, a single perfect diamond, and then at Michael's face, so full of love and hope and fear. She thought about practicality, about the 70% chance of failure, about becoming a widow at 23, about what people would say, what they would think. Then she thought about love, about the way Michael made her feel, about the joy they'd found together, about not letting fear steal what little time they might have. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Michael's smile was brilliant. He slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, and then he was kissing her, deep and passionate and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying at once, Michael rested his forehead against hers. "We'll do it tomorrow," he said. "Before I leave. Just a simple registry office ceremony. I don't need anything fancy. I just need to know you're my wife." "Tomorrow?" Emma's head was spinning. "Is that too fast?" Michael looked worried. "I just thought, with me leaving, and not knowing what will happen." "Tomorrow is perfect," Emma interrupted. "Let's do it. Let's get married." They spent the rest of the night wrapped around each other, the ring on Emma's finger catching the light, both of them holding on tight to the happiness they'd found, trying not to think about the goodbye that was coming. The registry office was small and impersonal, nothing like the lavish wedding a billionaire might be expected to have. Emma wore her blue dress from the night before. Michael wore casual slacks and a white shirt. Their witnesses were Mrs. Patricia and Chitty, the security guard who'd lent Emma his motorcycle, both sworn to secrecy. The ceremony itself was brief, standard vows, rings exchanged, papers signed. But when the registrar said, "You may kiss your bride," and Michael pulled Emma close, sealing their marriage with a kiss that made her toes curl, It felt like the most important moment of her life. "Mrs. Sterling," Michael whispered against her lips. "Mr. Sterling," Emma whispered back, and they both laughed, giddy with the impossibility of it all. They had lunch at a small restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and warm atmosphere. Mrs. Patricia kept tearing up, and Chitty kept grinning like he'd personally arranged the match. "You two are good for each other," Chitty said as they ate. "I've worked for Mr. Sterling for 5 years, and I've never seen him smile as much as he has since Emma came around." "She's magic," Michael said simply, his hand finding Emma's under the table. "Just don't forget us little people when you're living your fairy tale," Mrs. Patricia teased, though her eyes were sad. She knew about Michael's departure, though not about the diagnosis. "Never," Emma promised. But the lunch couldn't last forever. Eventually, they had to return to the estate. Michael's bags were packed. His flight was in 3 hours. In his bedroom, their bedroom now, Emma realized they held each other one last time. "I'm going to call you every day," Michael promised. "When they allow phone calls, I mean. And I'm going to fight, Emma. I'm going to fight harder than I've ever fought for anything. I know you will." Emma tried to memorize everything about this moment. The way he smelled, the sound of his heartbeat, the weight of his arms around her. "I love you so much. I love you too. My wife. My Emma." Michael pulled back, framing her face with his hands. "Wait for me. Please." "I'll wait forever if I have to," Emma promised and meant it. The drive to the airport was quiet. Emma sat in the back of the car with Michael, their hands clasped, both of them trying to be strong. At the airport, Michael's private jet was waiting. He could have had Emma come all the way to the plane, but they both agreed it would be easier to say goodbye at the terminal entrance. "This is it," Michael said, his voice rough. "This is it," Emma echoed. They kissed, long and deep and desperate, both of them trying to pour everything they felt into that one kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both of them had tears on their cheeks. "I'll come back to you," Michael said fiercely. "I promise I'll come back. Just don't die," Emma whispered. "That's all I ask. Don't die, Michael." "I won't. I promise. One last kiss, quick and hard. I love you, Mrs. Sterling. I love you too." Then he was walking away, and Emma was watching him go, her heart going with him. The ring on her finger suddenly heavy with the weight of promises and hope and fear. Michael turned back once at the security gate, raising his hand in a wave. Emma waved back, forcing a smile she didn't feel. And then he was gone. Emma stood there for a long time, staring at the empty space where he'd been, feeling like she'd been hollowed out. Around her, life continued. People rushing for flights, families reuniting, lovers saying hello and goodbye. But Emma felt frozen, unable to move, unable to process the fact that her husband of 3 hours had just left the country for a treatment that might kill him. "Ma'am," Chitty's voice was gentle. He'd waited by the car to give them privacy. "We should go." Emma nodded mutely and let him lead her back to the car. On the drive home, she twisted the ring on her finger, this symbol of a marriage that might last forever or might end before it truly began. When they pulled up to the estate, Emma looked at the massive house and felt a wave of loneliness, so intense it took her breath away. This was home now. She was Michael Sterling's wife. She had every right to be here, to live in the main house, to enjoy the luxury. But without Michael, it was just a building. Beautiful, expensive, and completely empty of the only thing that mattered. Emma went straight to their bedroom, to the bed they'd shared, and buried her face in Michael's pillow, breathing in his scent. Then finally, she let herself break down and cry for everything she'd gained and might lose, for the love she'd found and the fear that it would be taken away, for the cruel irony of finding her soul mate just as he might be dying. She cried until she had no tears left, until exhaustion claimed her, until she fell asleep curled around Michael's pillow, wearing her wedding ring and her blue dress. Mrs. Emma Sterling, aged 23, married and possibly already on her way to becoming a widow. The first month was the hardest. Emma moved into the main house, into the master suite she'd shared with Michael. The staff treated her differently now, with respect tinged with curiosity and, in some cases, resentment. The news that Michael had married his maid had spread quickly through the household, and opinions were divided. Mrs. Patricia became Emma's anchor. The older woman helped her navigate her new position, taught her how to manage the household, showed her which staff could be trusted and which couldn't. "You're the lady of the house now," Mrs. Patricia said one morning as they reviewed the week's menu. "You need to act like it." "I don't know how," Emma admitted. 2 months ago, I was cleaning these rooms. Now I'm supposed to be in charge of them? You'll learn. And Emma, Mrs. Patricia's voice softened. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong here. Mr. Michael married you because he loves you. That's all that matters. But belonging was easier said than felt. Emma wandered the vast house like a ghost, sleeping in Michael's shirts, eating meals alone in the grand dining room, trying to fill her days with purpose. She took over some of Michael's charitable work, the scholarship program, the housing projects, the community initiatives. She met with his executives, forced herself to learn about the business, determined to be a partner worthy of him. And she waited for phone calls that came irregularly and briefly. Michael's first call came 3 days after his arrival in Germany. His voice was strained, tired, but warm. Emma. God, I miss you. I miss you too. How is it? Emma clutched the phone like a lifeline. Intense. The preliminary tests alone are exhausting. But the doctors seem optimistic. They think I'm a good candidate for the treatment. He paused. How are you? How's the house? Empty without you, Emma said honestly. But I'm okay. I'm keeping busy. I'm working on the housing project. I have some ideas I want to run by you when you have time. They talked for 20 minutes. Not nearly enough, but more than Emma had dared hope for. When they hung up, Emma felt simultaneously better and worse. Better because she'd heard his voice. Worse because it made his absence more acute. The calls came weekly after that, brief check-ins where Michael would tell her about the treatment preparations and Emma would tell him about the business and the house, and carefully avoid mentioning how much she cried herself to sleep every night. 6 weeks after Michael left, Emma woke up feeling nauseous. She barely made it to the bathroom before she was sick. Food poisoning, she thought. Or stress. But when it happened again the next morning, and the morning after that, a different possibility began to form in her mind. She bought a pregnancy test at a pharmacy, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, terrified someone would recognize her. In the bathroom of a small cafe, she took the test with shaking hands. Positive. Emma stared at the 2 pink lines, her mind reeling. She was pregnant, with Michael's baby, conceived during one of their last nights together before he left. She should have been terrified, should have been overwhelmed. She was 23, her husband was in Germany undergoing life-threatening treatment, and she was about to become a mother. Instead, Emma felt something like hope bloom in her chest. This baby was a piece of Michael, a piece of their love. No matter what happened in Germany, she would have this. She wanted to call him immediately to share the news. But something stopped her. Michael was about to undergo the actual surgery, the risky procedure that could save him or kill him. He didn't need the added pressure of knowing he was going to be a father, of feeling like he had to survive not just for her, but for their child. Emma decided to wait. She'd tell him after the surgery, when he was in recovery, when she knew whether or not she'd be raising this baby alone. The next few weeks were surreal. Emma's body changed subtly, her breasts tender, her appetite strange, her emotions even more volatile than grief and stress alone could account for. She hid the pregnancy from everyone, wearing loose clothes, blaming her nausea on stress. The surgery was scheduled for 3 months after Michael's departure. 3 months to the day since Emma had said goodbye to him at the airport, since she'd watched him walk away, since she'd become a wife who might already be a widow. The night before the surgery, Michael called. "Tomorrow's the day," he said, and Emma could hear the fear under his attempted calm. "You're going to be fine," Emma said with a conviction she didn't feel. "I don't know if I am." Michael's voice cracked. "Emma, I'm scared. I'm really scared." "I know, baby. I know." Emma closed her eyes, one hand unconsciously moving to her still flat stomach. "But you're strong. And you're a fighter. And you have so much to come back to." "Tell me about home," Michael asked. "Tell me about the house. About Lagos. About us." So Emma talked. She told him about the renovations she'd started on the East Wing. About the new community center the Sterling Foundation was funding. About the jasmine growing wild in the garden, filling the air with perfume. About how she slept in his shirts and read his books and waited for him. "I love you," Michael said when she finally ran out of words. "Emma, I love you so much. And when I wake up tomorrow, because I will wake up, the first thing I'm going to do is tell the doctors I need to call you." "I'll be waiting," Emma promised. "Kiss me goodbye," Michael said softly. Emma pressed her lips to her fingers, then to the phone. "Come back to me. Always." The line went dead, and Emma sat in the quiet study, holding the phone, feeling their baby flutter inside her. Too early for real movement, just her imagination, but comforting nonetheless. "Your daddy is very brave," she whispered, her hand on her stomach. "And tomorrow, we're going to find out if we get to meet him." Emma didn't sleep that night. She paced the house, her phone in her hand, waiting for a call that wouldn't come for hours yet. The surgery was scheduled for 8 a.m. German time, 10 a.m. Lagos time. It would take 8 to 12 hours. She'd hear something by evening. Either Michael would call, groggy but alive, or a doctor would call to tell her he hadn't made it. By dawn, Emma was exhausted but still too wired to rest. She showered, dressed carefully, and went down to breakfast. She couldn't eat, just pushed food around her plate while Mrs. Patricia watched her with worried eyes. "He's going to be fine," the older woman said. "You don't know that," Emma whispered. "No, but I believe it. And you need to believe it too." The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. 10 a.m. came and went. The surgery would be starting. Emma tried to distract herself with work, with reading, with anything. Nothing helped. Noon. 2 p.m. 4 p.m. 6 p.m. By 8 p.m. Lagos time, 10 p.m. in Germany, Emma was pacing the study like a caged animal, her phone clutched in her white-knuckled grip. Then finally it rang. Emma answered before the first ring finished. "Hello, Mrs. Sterling?" An unfamiliar voice, accented professional. Emma's heart stopped. "This is Dr. Mueller from the treatment center in Germany." "Is he alive?" Emma asked bluntly, unable to bear preliminaries. A pause that lasted 1,000 years. Then, yes. The surgery was successful. "Michael is alive." Emma's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, the phone pressed to her ear, sobs of relief tearing from her throat. "Mrs. Sterling? Are you there?" "Yes," Emma managed through her tears. "Yes, I'm here. He's really okay. He's in recovery now. The surgery went better than we hoped. We were able to remove 98% of the tumor. The remaining tissue is non-threatening and should remain stable. He'll need months of recovery and rehabilitation, but Mrs. Sterling," the doctor's voice held wonder, "your husband is going to live. Barring complications, he should make a full recovery." Emma couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, could only cry tears of joy, relief, and overwhelming gratitude. "He's asking for you," Dr. Mueller continued. "He's been awake for about an hour, and your name is all he'll say. Would you like to speak with him? Just briefly, he needs to rest." "Yes, please, yes." There was rustling, movement, and then a voice that sounded rough and drugged but wonderfully, beautifully alive. "Emma. Michael." His name was a prayer, a sob, a celebration. "You're okay. You're really okay. Told you. I'd come back." His words were slurred but determined. "Love you so much. I love you too. So much. Michael, I have something to tell you. Tired, but happy, you're my wife. Michael, listen, I'm pregnant. We're having a baby." Silence. For a moment Emma thought he'd fallen asleep, or hadn't heard, or hadn't understood through the medication fog. Then, "Baby? We're having a baby." "Yes." Emma was crying and laughing at the same time. "I found out a few weeks ago. I didn't want to tell you before the surgery because—" "Oh my God." Michael's voice suddenly sounded more alert, filled with wonder. "Emma, we're going to be parents?" "Yes. You're going to be a daddy." She heard him make a sound, half laugh, half sob. "I'm alive, and I'm going to be a father. Emma, this is— I know. Best day of my life." Michael's words were fading again, exhaustion claiming him. "Love you both so much. Rest now," Emma said softly. "I'll call tomorrow. I love you, Michael. Love you." The line went dead, and Emma sat on the floor of the study, one hand on her stomach, the other clutching the phone, crying so hard she couldn't see. But for the first time in 3 months, they were tears of pure joy. Her husband was alive. Her baby's father would get to meet his child. The nightmare was over, and the fairy tale, the impossible, beautiful, precious fairy tale, was going to continue. Mrs. Patricia found her there an hour later, still on the floor, still crying, wearing a smile that could have lit up all of Lagos. "He made it," Emma said simply. And Mrs. Patricia sank down beside her, pulling her into a hug, and they cried together, for joy, for relief, for the miracle of second chances and impossible odds overcome. The next 3 months were a study in patience and anticipation. Michael's recovery was slower than either of them wanted, but better than the doctors expected. He had to relearn some motor skills, rebuild his strength, adjust to life without the tumor that had been slowly killing him. But he was alive, and he was healing, and every week he sounded stronger on their daily phone calls. Emma's pregnancy progressed beautifully. Her morning sickness faded, her energy returned, and her belly began to swell with their growing child. She documented everything for Michael. Photos of her changing body, ultrasound images, updates on every milestone. "You're glowing," Michael said during one of their video calls, his eyes hungry as they traced her form on the screen. "God, I wish I could touch you. Feel the baby." "Soon," Emma promised, her hand on her rounded stomach. "The doctors say you can travel in another month. You'll be home before I'm too big to move. I'm missing so much." Michael's frustration was evident. "Your first months of pregnancy. Watching you change. Being there when you need me. You're alive," Emma reminded him gently. "That's all that matters. You're alive, and you're coming home, and we're going to have our baby together. Everything else is just details." During this time, Emma transformed from the uncertain girl who had married a billionaire into the woman worthy of being his wife. She threw herself into managing Sterling Industries' charitable foundations, working closely with Michael's executives, learning the business inside and out. She started a new initiative providing vocational training for young women from low-income families. Girls like she had been, given opportunities they would never have otherwise. She also quietly began preparations for Michael's return. She redecorated their bedroom, making it softer, warmer, more of a home than a showplace. She turned one of the spare rooms into a nursery, painting it soft yellow and filling it with everything a baby could need. She planned a small dinner party for his first night home, just close friends and staff who'd been with them through everything. And she waited. Finally, 6 months after he'd left, Michael called with the news she'd been desperate to hear. "I'm coming home. Tomorrow. The doctors cleared me for travel." Emma's heart soared. "Tomorrow? Really? Really? I'll land at 3 p.m. Emma," his voice roughened with emotion. "I can't wait to see you. To hold you. To feel our baby." "We can't wait to see you either," Emma said, her hand moving to her belly where their daughter, they'd learned the gender a month ago, kicked in response, as if she knew they were talking about her father. The next day, Emma was at the airport an hour early, too excited to wait at home. She wore a flowing dress that showed off her 6-month pregnancy, her hair loose, the ring Michael had given her catching the light. She felt beautiful in a way she never had before, not just physically but from the inside out, glowing with love and anticipation. When Michael finally emerged from customs, Emma's breath caught. He was thinner than when he'd left, his hair slightly longer, a new scar visible at his temple. But he was alive. He was healthy. And when he saw her, the smile that broke across his face was radiant with joy. "Emma." She ran to him, as much as a pregnant woman could run. And then she was in his arms, and he was holding her like he'd never let go, his face buried in her hair, his whole body trembling. "You're here," Emma sobbed into his shoulder. "You're really here. I'm here. I'm home." Michael pulled back just enough to cup her face, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "God, you're beautiful. You're so beautiful." Then he was kissing her, deep and desperate and full of 6 months of longing and separation and fear transformed into relief. Emma kissed him back with everything she had, pouring all her love into it, trying to make up for every missed kiss, every lonely night, every moment of fear that he wouldn't come back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Michael's gaze dropped to her rounded belly. His expression transformed into something approaching reverence. "May I?" he asked softly, his hands hovering near her stomach. "She's your daughter," Emma said with a watery smile. "You don't have to ask." Michael placed his hands carefully on her belly, his touch gentle and wondering. Almost immediately, the baby kicked, a strong, definite movement against his palm. Michael's eyes went wide. That's your daughter saying hello to her daddy," Emma confirmed, laughing through her tears. Michael dropped to his knees right there in the airport, his arms wrapping around Emma's waist, his face pressed to her belly. "Hi, baby girl," he whispered. "I'm your daddy. I'm sorry I wasn't here before, but I'm here now. And I'm never leaving you or your mama again." Emma ran her fingers through his hair, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Around them, people were staring, some with smiles, some with confusion, some filming on their phones. But Emma didn't care. Let them look. Let them see a man reunited with his wife and unborn child. Let them witness a love story that had beaten impossible odds. "Let's go home," she said softly. Michael stood, keeping one arm around her, his other hand never leaving her belly. "Let's go home." The first week of Michael's return was an adjustment. He tired easily, still recovering from the surgery and months of intensive rehabilitation. He had headaches, sometimes moments of dizziness, times when he needed to rest. But he was alive and he was present, and that was everything. They spent hours in bed, not making love yet. Michael was still building his strength, but just being together. Michael would lie with his head on Emma's chest, his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter move and kick. They talked about everything and nothing, making up for months of brief phone calls and inadequate video chats. "I thought about you every day," Michael confessed one night as they lay tangled together. "Every single day. When the pain was bad, when I was scared, when I wanted to give up, I'd think about you. About coming home to you. About meeting our daughter. It's what kept me fighting." "I'm so proud of you," Emma whispered, her fingers tracing the scar on his temple, the visible reminder of how close she'd come to losing him. "You're the strongest person I know." "I'm strong because of you," Michael corrected. "You gave me a reason to be strong." Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt their physical intimacy. Michael was tentative at first, worried about the baby, about Emma's comfort, about his own stamina. But Emma was patient, and eventually they found a new rhythm, slower, gentler, but no less passionate. Making love with her pregnant belly between them was different but beautiful, a tangible reminder of what they'd created together. "I love you like this," Michael murmured one night, his hands reverent on her swollen curves. "Full of our baby. Glowing. Perfect." "I'm far from perfect," Emma laughed. "I can't see my feet, I have to pee every 20 minutes, and I cry at diaper commercials." "Perfect," Michael repeated firmly, kissing her tenderly. As Emma's due date approached, they fell into a comfortable routine. Michael had stepped back from the day-to-day management of Sterling Industries, letting his executives handle most decisions while he focused on recovery and family. He and Emma spent their days preparing for the baby, taking childbirth classes together, arguing good-naturedly about names. "Sarah," Michael suggested. "Or Grace. Or Elizabeth." "Those are beautiful," Emma agreed. "But what about Hope? Because that's what she is, our hope made real." Michael looked at her, his eyes soft. "Hope Sterling. I love it." They went with Hope Grace. Hope for the future, grace for the second chance they'd been given. When Emma went into labor 3 days before her due date, Michael was a mess. The calm, controlled billionaire who'd run a multinational corporation became a panicked father-to-be who forgot the hospital bag twice and nearly ran a red light in his rush to get Emma to the hospital. "Michael, breathe," Emma said between contractions, oddly calm despite the pain. "We have time. You're in labor." Michael's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "Our baby is coming." "Yes, that's generally how it works," Emma teased gently. "But first babies usually take a while. We're okay." But once they reached the hospital, once Emma was in a gown and hooked up to monitors, the reality hit them both. They were about to become parents. Their daughter was about to enter the world. Labor was long and hard. 14 hours of contractions, of breathing exercises, of Michael holding Emma's hand and encouraging her even as she cursed him for getting her pregnant in the first place. "I'm sorry," Michael said for the 100th time, wiping sweat from Emma's forehead. "I'm so sorry you have to go through this." "Worth it," Emma gasped between contractions. "She's worth it." And when Hope Grace Sterling finally emerged, tiny and perfect and screaming her displeasure at the cold world, Emma took one look at her daughter's face and knew she'd been right. Completely worth it. Michael cut the cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. When the nurse placed Hope in Emma's arms, both parents just stared in wonder at the miracle they'd created. "She's perfect," Michael whispered, one finger gently stroking Hope's tiny hand. The baby instinctively grasped his finger, and Michael made a sound like a sob. "She's absolutely perfect." "She has your eyes," Emma said softly, though in truth the baby's eyes were that newborn blue that might change. But she could see Michael in their daughter's face, in the shape of her nose, the set of her jaw, the determined way she wailed. "She has your strength," Michael countered. "Look at those lungs." They took turns holding her, both afraid they might break something so small and precious, both unable to stop touching her, verifying she was real. "We made her," Emma said in wonder. "We made a whole person." "We made her out of love," Michael corrected, his arm around Emma, his other hand supporting Hope's head. "Out of impossible, against all odds, beautiful love." That first night in the hospital, with Hope sleeping in Emma's arms and Michael dozing in the uncomfortable chair beside the bed, Emma had a moment of profound clarity. A year ago, she'd been a maid in this man's house, invisible and unremarkable. going through life with practical expectations and no room for dreams. Now she was a wife, a mother, a woman transformed by love and loss and second chances. She'd watched her husband face death and fight his way back to life. She'd carried his child through months of uncertainty. She'd grown from a girl into a woman, from a maid into a partner, from ordinary into something extraordinary. Not because of money or status or the trappings of wealth, but because love had found her, had chosen her, had transformed her into someone capable of rising to meet it. "Thank you," Emma whispered, looking at Michael's sleeping face, then at Hope's tiny, perfect one. "Thank you for choosing me, for seeing me, for loving me." As if sensing her thoughts, Michael's eyes opened. He smiled at her, that crooked, beautiful smile that had captured her heart in a bookstore all those months ago. "Best decision I ever made," he said softly. "Falling in love with you." "Second best," Emma corrected, nodding at their daughter. "She's the best." "Fair point." Michael stood, stretching, then carefully climbed onto the narrow hospital bed beside Emma, wrapping his arms around both his girls. "But she wouldn't exist without you. So really you're still number one." Emma leaned into him, feeling safe and loved and complete. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" "More than okay." Michael kissed her temple, then Hope's downy head. "We're going to be extraordinary." The Sterling estate had changed in the years since Hope's birth. The formal, pristine showplace had been transformed into a family home. Toys scattered across expensive rugs. Children's artwork hung on walls alongside original paintings. The vast, echoing rooms were filled with laughter and life and love. Emma sat in the garden, watching as Michael chased their daughter, now a precocious 5-year-old with her father's gray eyes and her mother's smile, through the jasmine bushes. Hope shrieked with laughter, her pigtails flying, her princess dress, a gift from her grandmother, Emma's mother, who lived in a house Michael had bought for her on the estate grounds, trailing behind her. In Emma's arms, 2-year-old twins David and Grace, a surprise pregnancy that had sent both parents into a happy panic, dozed in the late afternoon sun. David had Emma's dark hair and Michael's serious expression. Grace was the opposite, Michael's lighter coloring and Emma's constant smile. "Got you." Michael scooped up Hope, spinning her until she giggled. "The dragon has captured the princess." "Mama, save me," Hope called out dramatically. "Sorry, baby," Emma called back with a grin. "Mama's got her hands full with your siblings. You'll have to save yourself." "Then I'll save myself," Hope declared, wriggling until Michael set her down. "I'm a strong princess." "Just like your mother," Michael said, walking over to Emma and settling onto the bench beside her. He pressed a kiss to her temple, then carefully kissed each sleeping twin. "How are my other troublemakers?" "Peaceful for the moment," Emma said softly. "Don't jinx it." 5 years of marriage had only deepened their love. Michael had been cancer-free since the surgery, with annual scans showing no signs of recurrence. He'd scaled back his business commitments even more after the twins arrived, preferring to spend his time with his family rather than in boardrooms. Emma had completed her university degree online, then started a nonprofit focused on education and vocational training for young women. She spent her mornings with the kids and her afternoons building an organization that had already helped hundreds of girls escape poverty and build better futures. "I've been thinking," Michael said, his arm around Emma's shoulders, "about renewing our vows." Emma looked at him in surprise. "Why? We're not having problems, are we?" "God, no." Michael laughed. "The opposite. Our wedding was so rushed, so simple. You deserved more. I want to give you the fairy tale wedding. The dress, the guests, the celebration. I want to marry you again, properly this time, and let the whole world witness how much I love you." Emma's eyes filled with tears, a common occurrence even 5 years later when Michael said things like this. "I loved our wedding. It was perfect because it was us." "I know, but don't you want the big moment? The princess dress? The reception where we dance until dawn?" Michael traced her jawline gently. "You've given me everything, Emma. Let me give you this." Emma thought about it. About the blue dress she'd worn to a registry office. About the small, private moment that had joined their lives. About how it had been perfect because it was them, unadorned by spectacle or show. But she also thought about Hope, who loved princesses and fairy tales. About the twins, who were too young to remember, but who would love seeing photos of their parents' wedding one day. About standing up in front of everyone and declaring her love for this man who had given her the world. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's do it. But something small, intimate. Family and close friends." I don't need 300 guests. Whatever you want, Michael promised. As long as at the end of it, you're still my wife. Always, Emma said, kissing him softly. Forever, Michael agreed against her lips. Hope came running up, breathless and flushed. Are you guys kissing again? You're always kissing. That's because we love each other, Emma explained, pulling her daughter onto her lap carefully, mindful of the sleeping twins. Gross, Hope declared, but she was smiling. When I grow up, I'm never getting married. We'll see about that, Michael said with a laugh. You might change your mind when you meet the right person. Did you change your mind, Mama? Hope asked. Daddy says you said you didn't believe in fairy tales. Emma met Michael's eyes over their daughter's head, seeing the love and humor there. I did change my mind, because I learned that fairy tales aren't about magic or perfection. They're about finding someone who makes you want to be brave. Someone worth fighting for. Someone who sees the best in you even when you can't see it yourself. And someone who makes really cute babies, Michael added, making Hope giggle. As the sun set over the Lego skyline, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, the Sterling family sat together in the garden. Michael held Grace while Emma cradled David. Hope sat between them, chattering about her day at kindergarten, about the friends she'd made, about the painting she'd done. It was ordinary and perfect, and everything Emma had never known she wanted. She thought about that first morning, walking into Michael's study with coffee, her heart innocent of the love that was coming. She thought about the moment he'd told her he was dying, the moment she decided to love him anyway. The goodbye at the airport, not knowing if she'd see him again. The joy of his survival, the miracle of their daughter, the expansion of their family. Every moment of fear, every tear shed, every night of loneliness, all of it had led here. To this garden, this family, this beautiful, impossible, perfect life. What are you thinking about? Michael asked softly, reading her expression. How lucky I am, Emma said simply. How grateful. I'm the lucky one, Michael insisted. A dying billionaire who found his maid and discovered what it really means to live. A virgin maid who fulfilled a billionaire's dying wish, Emma teased, referencing their beginning. Except I didn't die, Michael pointed out. Best plot twist ever, Emma agreed, laughing. As night fell and they gathered their children to go inside, David and Grace waking cranky, Hope protesting bedtime, the chaos of family life swirling around them, Emma caught Michael's hand. I love you, she said, the words as true and necessary as breathing. Today, tomorrow, always. I love you too, Michael replied, squeezing her hand. My Emma. My love. My life. And in that moment, with their children's laughter echoing through the halls and the future stretching bright before them, Emma knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. She'd chosen love. Against all odds, despite all logic, in the face of death itself. And love had chosen her back. The end. Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most ordinary ways. A maid and a billionaire. Coffee and conversation. A dying man learning to truly live, and a practical woman learning to believe in fairy tales. Michael and Emma Sterling beat the odds. They chose love when it seemed impossible, held on when it would have been easier to let go, and built a family from hope and second chances. Their story reminds us that true love isn't about perfection or ease. It's about choosing each other every single day, through fear and joy, through loss and gain, through the ordinary moments that make up an extraordinary life. What would you do for love? Would you believe in fairy tales? Would you take the risk? Maybe the better question is, what are you waiting for? If you loved Michael and Emma's story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Share this video with someone who believes in love, or someone who needs to be reminded that miracles can happen. And comment below. I want to hear your thoughts. Would you have made the same choices? What would you have done differently? Until next time, remember, the greatest love stories are the ones we're brave enough to live. Thanks for watching. Kisses.